Welcome to the debate, when an elected official holds up a protest sign, right in the middle of the State of the Union, and then gets physically confronted by a cabinet secretary. Is that the ultimate display of moral courage?
Or is it just a perfectly optimized, completely cynical performance for social media?
Right, exactly. Today we're looking at the explosive clashes between Texas Representative Al Green and Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin. And I argue that Representative Green's willingness to face, public expulsion and real professional consequences demonstrates a profound, genuine authenticity. It's driven by deeply held moral convictions that just completely supersede institutional decorum.
And I take the exact opposite view, actually. I argue that what we are watching here isn't raw, uncontrolled emotion. It's a highly calculated performance of authenticity.
Calculated? I mean, he was shouting.
Yes, but these politicians are weaponizing impoliteness and spontaneous anger to bypass traditional media, right? They're signaling directly to a partisan base.
Well, to start, I think we really need to look at the anatomy of that initial Homeland Security Committee hearing. If you look at the transcript, Green wasn't delivering some rehearsed monologue meant for a viral clip.
You don't think so?
No. I mean, he was in the middle of discussing reactions to peaceful protests. He was specifically invoking the historical trauma of Ruby Bridges. And then Mullin abruptly interrupts him to ask, "Are you calling me a racist?"
Right. It escalated fast.
It did. And Green was just trying to reclaim his allotted time, which is standard procedure. But Mullin refused. So that rapid-fire string of, shut up, it's my time," that Green let out, that wasn't calculated.
I disagree.
But that was a human being experiencing a genuine breakdown of patience on a topic of deep personal and historical significance.
Well, look, if you're listening to this and thinking, politicians have always lost their tempers, you're right. But what's different here is the modern incentive structure.
How so?
There's this fascinating study by Lupka and Engelman in Cogitatio Press that maps this whole thing out. They argue that authenticity in politics today isn't a trait you possess. It's an action. It's something you actually do.
Okay, something you do, like a tactic.
Exactly. And the primary tool is immediacy. Immediacy is the use of unfiltered language and raw emotion. The reason it works isn't just because it's loud. It's because breaking a formal rule proves to the voter that you aren't beholden to the institution.
So they think following the rules makes you look bad.
Yes. The mechanism of trust has completely inverted. Following the rules now makes you look suspicious and swampy, right? While breaking them makes you look like a genuine outsider. So when Green repeatedly yells, "shut up," at a sitting cabinet secretary, he is perfectly executing that immediacy.
Wait, walk me through that. Are you actually suggesting Green planned to lose his temper in that specific room on that specific topic?
You have to look at both sides of the friction to see the machinery at work here. Look at Secretary Mullin's real-time reaction. If he is genuinely just caught off guard by Green's spontaneous outburst, what does he do?
I guess he appeals to the chair? Or de-escalates?
Right, he could de-escalate. But instead, he leans entirely into the confrontation. He refuses to let the perceived accusation stand. He immediately invokes his own Cherokee heritage to insulate himself and then deliberately throws a personal jab at Green's recent primary defeat.
So you're arguing Mullin leaning into the fight wasn't just him losing his temper either, that it was a conscious decision to play a character? I mean, isn't that giving him a bit too much credit as some political mastermind?
It's not about being a mastermind. It's about instinctively playing an archetype. Mullin is performing the unapologetic defender who refuses to take insults from the political establishment.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, both men recognize the cameras are rolling and both instantly optimize the reactions. They know exactly what their respective audiences demand.
Well, I hear your point on the committee hearing. But let's shift to the State of the Union address, where the stakes are infinitely higher.
Absolutely higher.
I look at Green's protest there through a specific lens. Think of a principled whistleblower breaking a non-disclosure agreement.
Whistleblower?
Yes, hear me out. The whistleblower has to plan to copy the documents. Just as Green had to pre-plan the protest by smuggling in a printed sign that read "Black people aren't apes." But that premeditation doesn't negate the authenticity of the grievance.
I don't know if that analogy holds up.
It does, because the willingness to cross the ultimate institutional boundary, interrupting the president's address and being publicly removed by the sergeant-at-arms is what validates the act. He is a 77-year-old man standing with a cane, knowing he's going to be ejected.
Which makes it great television.
Afterward, he said, "I did it from my heart. It is better to stand alone than not stand at all." This is what the academic framework calls consistency. His core values dictate his actions regardless of how hostile the room is.
But bringing a printed sign completely contradicts your whole argument about raw, spontaneous emotion.
Not the emotion, the conviction.
You don't accidentally print a sign and sneak it past security in a fit of sudden passion. That is the definition of premeditation. Think of modern political decorum like a professional wrestling ring.
A wrestling ring?
Yes. The ropes are there to give the wrestlers something to bounce off of, right? To make the hits look harder. Mullin and Green aren't destroying the arena. They are using the ropes exactly as designed. Look at what Mullin did.
He went after him.
He literally walked across several rows of seating to physically attempt to grab the sign out of Green's hands.
I'm struggling to see how you can call facing actual expulsion using the ropes.
Because Mullin crossing the aisle is an aggressive performance of the enforcer role. He gets to play the masculine protector of institutional order by ironically using physical confrontation.
I mean, sure. It plays well for his base.
Exactly. We see this framing in conservative media coverage describing opponents as unhinged. It is theater on both sides. They are utilizing the friction of the event to project their brands.
Look, if we define every action a politician takes as a cynical performance, we lose the ability to recognize actual courage.
I'm not saying there's no courage.
But Green's entire life's work aligns completely with his actions here. If a politician is consistently willing to stand completely alone in a hostile chamber, risking their career for civil rights, at what point does the performance of authenticity just become actual authenticity?
It's not about being cynical about Green's life work, honestly. It's about understanding the mechanics of our modern digital media ecosystem. The study points out that social media provides an expressive apparatus.
Right, the algorithm.
Yes, these politicians know exactly how the algorithm works. They know that a viral 5-second clip of them yelling or physically posturing is worth 10 times more than a well-reasoned op-ed in the local paper.
Which is depressing, but true.
The electorate actively prioritizes unfiltered realness over traditional competence. When voters demand that their politicians fight dirty or show extreme emotion, the politicians supply it. It's the exact currency that trades highest in our current political economy.
So your stance is that even the most intense, potentially career-damaging outbursts are functionally just strategic content creation designed to feed an electorate that only trusts in politeness.
Exactly. In an era where voters inherently distrust polished politicians, weaponizing impoliteness and raw emotion is the absolute most effective way to project the realness the electorate demands.
And I maintain that when a politician's consistent principles lead them to sacrifice decorum and face actual institutional punishment, that transcends theater.
We'll just have to disagree on the intent.
Right. The consistency of the conviction is what makes it real, even if a camera happens to catch it.
Well, I think the one area where we absolutely agree is that the old structural container of political decorum is completely shattered.
Oh, without a doubt.
We've entered a reality where the formal rules of engagement are obsolete, largely because the voters themselves no longer respect or reward them.
We are definitively in a new era. The question that remains is whether the shattering of those rules is finally letting the unvarnished truth out, or if it's simply providing a much more dramatic script for the performers. We will leave that for you to decide.